Welcome to Family Basics 101. I'm Dr. Bruce McClure, the local minister at the Prince George's Church of Christ, located at 7800 Central Avenue in Landover, Maryland. We are going to spend the duration of this week, today and Thursday, looking at an encouraging lesson that gives us hope. Today, we're going to talk about moving beyond COVID. It has been with us for almost 2 years, and I know in many people's minds, the determination may have already been made that we will be with COVID impeding our lives for the next generation to come. But I want to give you encouragement and I want to give you optimism. Remember this. Seasons never stay forever. That's historically the way things are. Have you noticed that life is constantly changing? I mean, just think about your own personal life from day to day. Have you noticed that it is constantly changing? It never stays the same. Have you noticed that life's challenges are different from day to day? The challenges that you may have been faced with a week ago, a month ago, or even a year ago may not be, in all likelihood, the same challenges that you're faced with today. Have you also noticed the worries you had may not be the worries you now have? You know, yesterday, day before, Saturday, I had a worry that we were going to have a blizzard. I had a worry that there was going to be an ice storm. But today it is still cold, but it's 37, 38 degrees outside. But have you noticed the worries you had may not be the worries you now have? Worries change, they come and they go. Challenges, life challenges change, they come and they go. Life is consistently changing. I want to bring you back 2 years ago, January. This is January of 2022. But let's go back to January of 2020. What was your fondest memory? Well, let me start, not with March, but let's start with New Year's Eve. What was New Year's Eve like for you in 2020? Think about that. What did you do on New Year's Day in 2020? Where did you go out to eat on Valentine's Day? Or did you receive flowers or a card on Valentine's Day? Well, where are they now? Where are the cards? Where are the flowers? Where are the memories of the meal? All from 2020 and Valentine's Day. What was your fondest memory for the month of March 2020? What was the most exciting, exhilarating, fondest memory for the month of March? Well, you say, why March? Because by April, we were in the midst of COVID. We were in the crises. The thing I'm trying to get you to connect with is, in all likelihood, you don't even remember New Year's Eve of 2020. In all likelihood, you have not a clue of what you did on New Year's Day of 2020, or where you went out to eat in February of 2020, what Valentine's was like on February of 2020, whether or not you receive cards, where they are. That was in 2020. And in all likelihood, you're saying, I have no idea. March of 2020, what was that like? In all likelihood, you're saying, I just can't recall. And the reason being, 2020 is now 2 years in the rearview mirror. And although there were probably a lot of fond memories, a lot of fond events, a lot of fond interactions, maybe places that you went, gifts that you received, meals that you enjoyed, fellowship, traveling. But 2 years ago, you're saying, but whatever it was, although I can't remember it, it may have been good. It must have been good. But I just can't tell you the specific details today, because that's the way life is. It comes, it goes, and we deal with it. We are challenged by it. And it doesn't mean that those things weren't of great concern. For instance, these matters were a great concern then, back in time. Remember the H5N1 birds flu? It had been in the poultry population for over 40 years, but not until 2004 was it seen in the news headlines as a human pandemic. It originated in Vietnam and Thailand in their poultry industry. And it was a very fast mutating situation and fatal to human beings. Do you remember that? 566 confirmed cases and 322 deaths to humans. 400 million poultry were destroyed worldwide. 400 million. Bird flu still exists, but with very nominal death throughout the world. But yet, in 2004, it was one of the greatest human concerns, although the death rate was very low. The concern was eating poultry. And now people are not that concerned about it. Let me give you another one. These matters were a great concern then. Remember HIV and AIDS, the human immune deficiency virus? It was the most devastating pandemic of the 20th century. It was declared an epidemic in 1981 and has to date killed over 25 million people. But now in the United States and around the world, keep in mind, it still exists. But with the advancements in medications and greater awareness about risk and how to protect from contracting the disease, we're now able to navigate through it while at the same time not ignore its ongoing threat globally. HIV is still alive and well. But we watch commercials on TV where they're selling different medications. We understand people are still contracting it, but we're not running from people like we were back in the 80s and the early 90s. Back then, we didn't want to be around individuals that had HIV or AIDS. We were afraid them breathing on us or us touching them. We would get it. We were afraid if someone wanted to date, a male wanted to date a female, or a female wanted to date a male that had been exposed to HIV/AIDS. That was like a death sin. And now People are saying, well, with the right precautions, the person maintain their medications, we think it'll be okay. But back in the 80s, 20, 25 years ago, it was a major crisis that had the world and the United States in a panic. Let me give you one more. Anybody remember the mad cow disease, the bovine spongiform encephalopathy? Well, it's a disease of the nervous system in cattle that was caused by proteins known as prions infecting the brain. Mad cow disease all but destroyed the United Kingdom's beef industry during the late 1980s and into the 1990s, which led to a total ban on exporting meats for years. And now people aren't concerned about the source of their beef. People are still eating ground beef. People are still enjoying filet mignons, ribeyes, porterhouses. But in the 1980s, the latter part, into the 1990s, people were very, very, very skeptical about beef. And no matter how the meat industry tried to convey to people, well, it's just a certain area of the country, the United Kingdom's beef. There were people who left beef alone. And now, all of that is in the rearview mirror. These matters, however, were a great concern then, just like COVID is a great concern now. COVID-19 will be no exception. We can talk about all of the things that this world has gone through, even in the United States in the past. But when it was in the present, it was a major crisis. So I want to encourage you, and I want you to believe that COVID-19 will not be an exception to this rule. That although today it may seem challenging, it will soon pass just like everything else has passed. The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 4. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Season, he says, to everything there is a set season. There's a set time of the event's occurrence and its exit. Don't forget that. There is a set time for it to happen, but don't forget there's a set time for it to end. For everything, there is a purpose, something to delight or take pleasure in. Now, in the midst of whatever that crisis is, whatever it is, it's hard to see the purpose of it. I would venture to tell you that no matter where we start in time, whether it was the bird's flu, whether it was HIV, or whether it's mad cow, you could not get people to say, well, there's a blessing in it. We know there's a blessing in it. Sometimes we don't know what those blessings are. Sometimes we don't know what that purpose is. But this is what we know biblically. There's a time and for every purpose under the sun. We may not learn that purpose in our lifetime, but it has a purpose. As of today, 65,236,475 cases of COVID has been reported in the United States, and 869,212 deaths have occurred in the United States. We may feel there's no end to it, but Ecclesiastes 3 says to everything there is a set time, but there's also a time of it to begin and a time for it to end. What is the purpose? We may not understand it. In our lifetime, we may not understand it. When we get to heaven, that may be a question we have to ask God. Why did this happen? As of today, 325,060,403 cases have been noted around the world of COVID-19, and 5,550,323 people worldwide has died. But this is the assurance. It has a set time. We know when it began. We may not know when it exit, but we can rest assured that it will exit. I hope this will encourage you, and I hope that this lesson will give you hope. Don't get caught up in what we're dealing with in the present as if it has no end. It will. I'll see you back in class again tomorrow. Don't be late and don't skip class.